I'm super excited for this episode of The Partnership because we have Christine Lee here, who is the VP of Partnerships and Enablement. And before the internet cut out, we were talking about your transition from sales into partnerships. So, if you don't mind, I would love to hear again, like, what triggered your switch from sales at LinkedIn to partnerships at G2?
Yeah, for me, partnerships has always been an unscratched itch. Being in sales, you your relationships with customers go on this relationship curve. It always starts out transactional. You want something from them, they want something from you. You do this little dance, and you make an exchange. And eventually, over time, there are opportunities to grow and evolve that relationship into a mutually beneficial partnership. And that is when you align your both companies' goals. You have multiple different functional teams collaborating together, all to achieve the same thing to deliver value to your mutual customers. Um, and I've always wanted to see those type of partnerships through, and take them to a whole different level. But being in sales, you're as they call it, you've got these golden handcuffs that
Yeah.
straps you to a number that you're responsible for, and with good reason. So a lot of the work of partnerships falls outside of the scope of being in sales. And I've always just been curious to go back and see what I could do with these type of relationships. Um, the next piece was just the timing and the company. Um, Change is hard, and making any big pivots in your career can be daunting. It's a very scary thing. Um, but when I looked at G2 and the senior leadership team that was in place, they're just such strong supporters of partnerships, or they believe it. Our CRO loves getting involved with our partners and brainstorming ideas. Our CEO is passionate about partnerships and constantly advocates for it. um, our CPO loves to be engaged and joins partnership meetings, and we just really there's this culture in where partnerships are it's highly embraced. And so I knew by making this move, I would be going into an organization first, a company that I love and believe in the purpose of, but also would have a senior leadership team who I wouldn't have to constantly sell the value of
Yeah.
partnerships. It would just be there to support me through this change and help me grow into the role. Um, all those factors combined are the reasons why I decided to make the shift into partnerships.
Yeah, it's so important to have a leadership team which is bought in and actually believes in partnerships rather than you having to sell them on it. But I assume if they hired you for partnerships, they at least had an assumption that this is going to be something which is valuable. For those of us who don't know about G2 and about what kind of partnerships you work on, like, can you share a little bit more about what G2 is and also what kind of partnerships you looked after? Or what did the partnerships team look like when you joined?
Yeah, yeah. G2 is, we are where you go for software
Yeah.
purchases. We are the largest marketplace for B2B software and products. And our core purpose is to inject trust and transparency into the buyer process for software. Um, we do this through raising um, authentic customer reviews and invoices on products and services that are offered in the space. So far, we've just crossed the milestone of having over 2.5 million authentic reviews on our platform.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we have over 150,000 products and services listed, and we host on average over 80 million buyers every year to help them, really feel confident in the choices that they're making for software purchase. It's kind of like even today, like if I'm a big Amazon shopaholic. Um, but anytime I make a purchase, I'm going down to the reviews and I'm going to to see if those reviews agree with me, like if those features are what I'm looking for, etc. Um, that's exactly the what we're trying to do for buyers who are making these large six-figure or more purchasing decisions,
Yeah.
uh, and making sure that they feel good about those decisions that they're making.
Yeah, and these are not just any reviews. leave G2 reviews a lot for software that we buy as well at Hopin. And they're very thorough. Like they ask for a lot of information. They want you to take G2
Yeah.
wants you to take screenshots of yourself in the product to make sure that you actually know like what this product does and actually show that you actually have access to it as well. So it's an incredible resource for a lot of people. And we do a lot of research for this podcast. And one of the podcasts I listened to actually in order to prepare for this was a one called Groundworks, which is on YouTube,
Mhm.
where you talk to Ty a lot about your experience at G2 and also what happened beforehand. So I think if people are interested in learning more about that, I would highly recommend them to go into YouTube and search your name. Today, I really want to focus on the larger partnerships you work on at G2. So these partnerships include like AWS, SAP, Microsoft, and other industry giants as part of a program called the G2 Syndicated Review Partner Program. Can you tell a little bit more about like how this idea came about? Because it's so unique and different from any kind of other partnership I've seen before.
Yeah. Yeah. So back to your earlier question about the types of partnerships at G2, we've got we've got three types of partnerships. The first one is integration tech partnerships that really look at our core offerings for sellers or vendors on our platform, and maximizing the ROI and stickiness of our products through tech partners. The second is channel partnerships, and this is where we look at this is a kind of a very new area for us, where we're exploring into working with service agencies to provide a more full service or full holistic solution to customers. And then the third is what you just mentioned, which are syndication partners. Um, and eh, we currently partner with over 15 large enterprise marketplaces. Um, and the one that's most well known is our review syndication, in where we're taking G2 reviews and then bringing them into these different large, massive marketplace ecosystems. And our goal here is, again, goes back to our vision to bring transparency into B2B purchase. And our idea is that it doesn't matter where you're making those purchases from. Right? We don't expect you to be on G2 all the time and to stay on G2.
Yeah.
Uh, so what we wanted to do was bring the trust and transparency that you see on G2 to wherever you're doing your research and wherever you're ready to purchase. Um, so
So
how
what
it
does
started?
this Oh
Oh,
yeah,
sorry.
what does this look like in practice? Just to visualize it. Does that mean like if I want to buy, for example, Chili Piper, which is a scheduling tool for
Yeah.
sales teams, on the Salesforce App Exchange, does that mean that I see the G2 reviews on the App Exchange?
That would be the idea. We currently don't have a partnership with App Exchange, so if there are
Yeah.
anyone, who's watching this from App Exchange, reach out, because we would love to talk. But yes, generally that's the idea. If you go to, for example, AWS Marketplace, or Microsoft Azure Marketplace, you'll see that, if you're looking up a product profile, you'll see some native reviews from that marketplace, and as well as external reviews from G2. And
Mhm.
depending on the marketplace, they may have it structured a little bit differently. Some combine them, some don't. In AWS's case, what we've heard from their research is that a product profile with G2 reviews syndicated, on average, transact 14% higher than a product profile that does not have G2 reviews syndicated. And that includes product profiles that have native reviews from AWS. Um,
Mhm.
so that's the metric that warms my heart.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, those are incredible stats. How did the idea come about? Like, how do you come up with this? Because it is a quite unique approach. Like, I haven't heard about something similar being done by other review platforms, and it's probably also difficult to sell that value to a partner if they've never seen this before.
Yeah, yeah. The idea came about. It predates my time at G2. So it started back in 2018, um, and it was kind of the perfect mix of where, you know as an organization, we were thinking about, how do we expand, how do we scale, how do we reach more buyers, how do we get our brand out there more, how do we continue to, build and grow our vision. Um, And then at the same time, I think marketplaces were starting to come to this realization that just because they build it doesn't mean that people will come. And they actually have to invest quite significantly in their infrastructure, in their content, in order to have buyers be engaged and have trust in their platform. Um, and then the third was that we had a customer who actually came up to us and said, "Hey, love that I'm getting these reviews from on G2. Like it's very valuable for my company. Um, but I've got a listing on AWS, and I would like to take my reviews with me." And we're like, "That's a great idea." So, when those kind of three dimensions collide, that's
Yeah.
how we came up with this partnership program. It was a win-win for everyone. It was a win for the vendor who can take their reviews, and now instead of investing resources across multiple marketplaces, they can focus on one and be able to get more mileage out of that. It's a win for the marketplaces because now the critical infrastructure that would take, it took us 10 years to build, is no longer needed in their organization. They can focus their priorities in in achieving their core missions, right? Whether that be streamlining the procurement process or just making it easier for those buyers to transact. And it was a win for us because it would give us the ability to really expand our brand and get into these different ecosystems that we know our buyers are there, but maybe just haven't come to our site for.
Yeah, I totally agree with Patrick. Like, love it. I like how the trifecta came together. It was like customers, partners, internal. Like, there was just so many people who aligned in order to make this happen and to bring this vision alive. What were the challenges you encountered when you approached these large partners? Like, it's no small feat to approach an AWS and pitch them on a completely novel idea, but at the same time, as somebody who listed on marketplaces like that, I totally see the value of it because it's very hard to get reviews for it. It's very hard to establish credibility when you're just listing for the first time. So I definitely see how we would love to bring our hundreds of reviews hop and hands on G2 to other platforms.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there were three main hurdles that we faced and we were able to overcome. So, the first one is just, I mentioned earlier that review collection's hard, and you really need a pretty robust infrastructure to do it right. To your point, Franz, earlier, like we have over 65 questions in a review form, and the purpose of those 65 questions is really to help guide the reviewer in what to write. It's one thing to give a review for, I don't know, like a $5 tube of toothpaste. It worked. It did it. Right. I like the taste. I don't like the smell. But it's different when you're writing a review for a six-figure software or sometimes over $1 million of software. It's hard to know where to start and what information would actually be valuable to the buyer. So we invest quite significantly in this area, and we have a team of over 50 researchers who are constantly updating our taxonomy, who are verifying and validating each reviews. And um, all of this to say is that when we approach these marketplaces, some had an idea that reviews were hard. They saw that they didn't get much reviews on their platform, and so they're like, I think this is a bigger job than what we originally thought it would be. But very few people actually understood how much work and how much investment it would make um, to actually build a robust review system. And so getting that message across and helping marketplaces understand what it means to do reviews right, and the investment that you would need to make in doing that if you were to in-house everything, was the first roadblock that we had to cross. And then the second was, remaining agnostic to reviews. So there is this whole element of accountability, like who's responsible for a bad review? Like, how do we take it off? Will you filter it on your end? And out of principle, we share that we would not be filtering negative reviews. We believe in transparency, and that's the intention behind this syndication partnership. So we had to help marketplaces become comfortable with that. They're not going to get all 5-star reviews for their vendors, they're probably going to hear back from the vendors and asking about why reviews were negative or how to take things down,
Yeah.
and be comfortable with that. And then a third piece was just around, it was a funny thing. So when we first started going to speaking with marketplaces about review syndication, we had no intention of monetizing it. We were like, hey, it's a win-win for everyone. So like, here's our API, like go and do something. And then nobody did anything with it. So where we actually saw action was when we put a monetizing a value against
Yeah.
the integration, and all of a sudden, then companies were asked to prove ROI of it, and that means that they would have to actually prioritize it in their engineering development, because they have to use it in order to show the ROI for the spend. So that was another, I think, unforeseen lesson that we learned from this experience.
Yeah, I think that insight is so fascinating. I did like the idea of like negative reviews actually being something important as well. I think you mentioned it at your talk at SaaS Connect as well, that having some negative reviews is actually healthy because it provides authenticity, and it shows you also like this is the ICP, and then these people didn't like it because they're not ICP, compared to like just having 5-star reviews. Like that doesn't seem like a product I would actually want to buy. It seems like everybody's like parents and friends actually left reviews rather than authentic buyers. But the thing I wanted to drill down on is you mentioned that once you started pricing, partners actually took this serious. Like, how did you make that switch? How did you like transition from, hey, I didn't like I'm giving you this for free, to actually we're going to charge you money for it and you have to prove the ROI, and this is a big investment for you? Because I do see the value of that, because once there is money changing hands, it also means that somebody's like neck is on the chopping block and somebody's responsible for this investment.
Yeah, yeah. I would say, the transition itself, I wouldn't be able to speak into details about, but overall, what we did from our approach to pricing was we looked at what the market value would be if we were talking to, let's say, like we don't have a review syndication example to go after in the B2B space, but there are review syndication programs in that's offered in the B2C space. So like all B2B trends, we looked at BDC and we try to assess from there and learn from those lessons around how to price it according to market demand. We also worked really closely with those other marketplaces that we were speaking to, just around like what would be a pilot? What would a pilot look like, right? And how can we make the pricing fit a pilot phase versus going full blown? And then having it kind of a multi-year ramp schedule so that year one, you're talking about pilot, they can step in. Year two, we're going to be increasing it slightly so that to bring it to that market value, and making that palatable to the marketplace partner. And the third piece was around coverage. Like, how much are they actually getting in our review syndication? How many of those products actually do we actually have coverage for and have reviews for? So that was another important factor, was making sure that how we price is also based on what they're getting and
Yeah.
and that product coverage profile.
Definitely. How did you structure like an MVP? Like, what did a minimum viable partnership look like for such a big endeavor? Because, the AWS marketplace has like probably thousands of companies listed there. Did you start it like by, just having a small amount of these products supported with Jeep2 reviews and then expand, or did you structure it
Yeah.
differently?
I think it depends. It really was what the marketplace partner was willing to take on. So I mean, our ideal would be like put it everywhere, right? But it really came down to what the marketplace partner was comfortable with. In some cases, for example, with AWS, we had, I believe, like 2 or 3 categories that we started with. We tested, we measured. They measured its performance, and then we were able to expand and scale up from there. In other cases, it was the full marketplace. CDW was our first partner, um, They were really the OG for G2 review syndication, and they wanted to do everything. So now even the CDW syndicates beyond reviews. They also syndicate our content, and we've seen that relationship grow, and it's been great. So I would say there isn't really a one way that we were fixated on. It was really more about the marketplace partner and their resources and how they wanted to approach it.
Got it. And in terms of the people involved, who on the G2 leadership team was like involved in these partner discussions, and or just in general, who on the G2 side was involved, who on the other side was involved? Like, how did you structure these conversations?
Yeah, a lot of these partnerships started in product. So our product team were heavily involved. Their product team were heavily involved. Our CPO was involved. Our oftentimes, like I mentioned earlier, our CRO and CEO are just big advocates of partners. So they would get involved. And I think as we continue these partnerships, what we've learned from them is that even though the product teams are the ones who are actually implementing, executing on it, you do need to be engaging the business stakeholders, and that includes the ISV sales team, or the head of the alliance and ecosystems, um, because ultimately the uh, the sellers on these platforms, the ISVs, are the ones who benefit from having their reviews be syndicated over, in addition to the buyer experience. Um, so having those business stakeholders involved and making sure that your partnership is associated down to revenue, ensures that the partnership gets prioritized and will continue to get prioritized, even if the product team has a turnover or any interruptions happens on that side.
Yeah, that's such an important point. I think it goes back to what you mentioned about, why partnerships is because partnerships is like an orchestra and every single team has to pull on the same string in order to actually make it happen. And you just touched on a really important point as well. Like, what happens when people get laid off? What happens when people, leave the company or change teams and all of a sudden you lose your biggest fan or champion internally? So it's really important to multi-thread these. um, Talking about prioritization, the one team which I find the hardest to actually get anything to prioritize is the engineering team. So I just wanted to know, like, how did you get this indication program prioritized by the partners engineering team? Like, how did you convince the AWS engineering team that this is something they should spend time on compared to other initiatives?
Yeah. I think the key to the engineering team is the product team. And so ensuring that the product team is bought on through the vision. Very oftentimes we start with the customer vision. What is the benefit for their customers, and for who their audience is. Within marketplace ecosystems, you often have two separate product teams. One is focused on the seller's experience, and then the other is focused on the buyer's experience. We as a marketplace knows this better than anyone. And so when working with the product team, really, getting down to what are their KPIs that they're going after, whether it be for sellers or for buyers, and then translating that into their engineering roadmap. And uh, I mean, really, the product team are the ones who have the keys to the engineering resource. So as long as your program aligns with their top priorities, it becomes an organic sell internally. I think
Yeah.
the challenge is when they don't match, and then there's some selling you need to
Yeah.
do on that.
How did you identify these top priorities? Like, how did you understand what is it that that team cares about and pitch them on it?
Yeah, I mean, the simple way is to ask, right? It's more just to ask, like,
And
"Okay,
sometimes the
okay,
simple
who
way is
else
the
is
right
this?"
way. Like,
Right, but also sometimes you may not get the full answer, or you may not get the context behind the answer, right? And so there comes a time where you need to do your due diligence in researching the company, in talking to other stakeholders involved, and understanding the need or prioritization from across the business. And sometimes it's bringing awareness to those needs, with the right product partners. Um, and also, in partnerships, one of um, things that I've learned is just it's also okay to agree that the timing is off, and that while it's an interesting conversation to have, now is not the right time for us to prioritize it, and that's okay. So we got to be able to work with that and accept that and move on and come back. When the when the times do align.
Yeah, I think that's so important because oftentimes you're not doing anybody a favor if you give them like a vague answer or like a maybe or something like that. Like that just puts them on the wrong path and wastes everybody's time. In that sense, partnerships is often kind of like venture capital, where you can have these conversations, you can take the intro, you can learn what you can learn, but then you just say like maybe right now is not the right time for us, or maybe we need other information from you first before we can actually push forward on it. We got a question from the audience. We're running short on time, so we'll take one more question. Just curious, what's been your most memorable partnership success story? Perhaps something that appeared to have been a dead end at first that ended up turning around?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say there's some recency bias on this, but we recently completed a multi-year partnership renewal with AWS Marketplace, and this one was a wild one because we have such a wonderful partnership with AWS that I think both teams were really excited to grow it. Um, and if if you're passionate about what you do like I am, sometimes you bite on a little bit more than you can chew. And then all of a sudden, the renewal was coming up within a month, and we had a a a crazy amount of ideas put together in one proposal that was supposed to span over like 5 years into this large, big vision. And the reality was that the renewal just didn't have that type of scope or that type of timeline to go against. So then we had to really quickly kind of readjust, scale back, and peel back what could be added on later, what could be something that we work on later, and create this more simplified version of it. So I wouldn't say that at any point our partnership was going sideways, or that we thought maybe we hit a dead end. I think it was the contrary to that, in where we wanted to do so much, but battling the reality of of just having a logistics of a renewal contract. We had to kind of slim, and we had to kind of phase it out a little bit more.
Got it. I think that's really important, especially in this climate right now, to be realistic and
Yeah.
have these lofty visions as a partnerships team, but also be flexible enough to understand that you might not be able to achieve everything you want, just given what the climate right now is like for companies. The last question for today, and then we'll let you go, is what advice would you give someone who wants to partner with industry giants like AWS or SAP or Microsoft?
Yeah, I would say the first is align your value with what they're trying to achieve. So really, understand what are these marketplaces or these giants trying to achieve in the market. Oftentimes, what they're trying to achieve is greater than just revenue. Revenue helps. You still need to anchor yourself with that. But oftentimes, there's a bigger vision that they're trying to achieve, and aligning yourself with that vision helps get you into the conversation. Um, we all enjoy working for something that has a purpose or that has some meaning, and beyond just a paycheck. Um, getting getting your partnership structured in that way so that there is a bigger purpose um, helps boost your engagement and just ability to inspire um, participation from these giants.
Got it. I love that. Like definitely, appeal to their higher purpose, appeal to the grander mission than just they themselves, and rally all the teams around it. And I
Yeah.
also wanted to like highlight Andrew's comment, because I think it was such an important statement you just made about sometimes it's just not the right time, and I definitely agree with that as well. Because it's really important in partnerships to be honest, because you're building long-term relationships. You're not just trying to transact one time and then walk away regardless of your reputation. Christine, this was so great. And thank you, Andrew and Patrick and Charlotte and everybody who joined us live today, despite the technical issues. Christine, if people want to follow along with your journey and G2's journey, where's the best place to follow you?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn. I know that platform very well, so definitely reach out. I'm always happy to chat or to share ideas. And I'm still relatively new to the partnership world, so I would love to learn from you all. If you've got ideas you want to share with me, please, I'd love to hear from you.
Definitely. That's awesome. And yeah, big fan of sharing ideas as well. So also feel free to connect with me and Christine anytime on LinkedIn to chat. And with that, that is a wrap for today's show. Thanks so much for joining, Christine, and thanks so much for watching live.